Ladies and gentlemen, we're on. Oh, it is time for To The Point. And To The Point is basically about us just getting to discuss things as they should be discussed. You know, I remember yesterday we had Dr. Wala, who's also quite conversant and, you know, always open to speak to some of the matters that we're about to speak to. And, you know, she says it's important that we speak of some of these things that appear uncomfortable because, after all, you know, we are human beings and, you know, this is basically what plays out in our lives. So, I mean, long gone are the days where you want to speak about these things, you know, hidden in the blanket and all that. And looking at the social media space, you know, it brings us to a space where it's easy for us to talk, you know, you lay bare some of the conversations that we really we're never comfortable talking about. And so To The Point is basically about that. But even as we get to the conversation, remember, the bottom line is for us to get solutions to some of the troubles that we have as a people. And this evening, I'm delighted to have, should I begin with the lady? No, maybe no, because, well, she's seated somewhere at the center. Should I?
Yeah.
I should begin by introducing the lady, yeah? And now that we have a jeep and a short that takes all of us, I think Dr. Ekra Ndungo will be the first person that we introduce this evening. Ladies first. I don't know whether it's men before. The chairperson of Kenya National Association of Private Colleges. Why we have her this evening for this very important conversation is because she gets to interact with lots of youth, you know, the young turks, those ones that are in campus. And if we're going to talk about sex and wellness or relationships and wellness, this is a group that we certainly have to address. The group that equally, you know, gets a lot of time online. We're calling them the Gen Zs, usually the Gen Xs and all that. You know, you want to speak to them, you speak to them online. Just why is it that they take it or they get it wrong when it comes to matters of love? And also, now officially I begin from this end, CJ Atemo, who's a growth coach. CJ, thank you so much for creating time after a very long time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. Then Denver. Denver is a household name. This one is part and parcel of us, a relationship podcaster. Thank you for creating time as well this evening. And lastly, none other than Byron Adera, who's a pioneer ex-Kenya Special Forces officer, equally a wellness enthusiast. Asanteni sana. And straight to the conversation. And it's sex and wellness, but I likely want us to focus much on the online space. And I think this goes straight, not to the lady, to Denver. Denver, because you spend so much time online as a podcaster, you know, if I'm going to get a job online and make money online, why is it that it's quite a big deal if I'm going to, you know, like proceed and get a relationship in that very same space?
Well, there's a lot of people nowadays that aren't spending as much time outside of their houses. And there's a lot more people that are afraid of reaching out to new people, networking, even just speaking to someone you're interested in. So it becomes very almost necessary for a lot of people to try out dating online because it kind of clears a lot of the barriers. It reduces the whole idea of if I'm rejected, everyone sees me getting rejected. Because if I slide into someone's DMs, if I'm unmatched on a dating app, then it's something that I myself and possibly the person who's doing the rejection will sort of know, and it won't be sent out to everyone else, not unless if everyone else is given an opportunity to look in. So that sort of privacy, that sort of security of not feeling shunned by everyone else because you just got rejected is something that is very appealing for a lot of young people today.
Is that wellness in its own way, Byron? Is that wellness, you know, just looking at it and thinking, oh, my secret is safe and all this thing and, you know, rejection, now that we have a generation that really does not know how best to handle rejection. Is that wellness in its own way?
Well, thanks for the question, and I do really agree with Denver. The fact that the social media space is now a safe space, according to what he's saying, to people speaks to the very nature of what we see happening with human beings today, that we may not be grounded, as they say out there, to a point where we fear rejection, the fear of failure, which in itself is not a strength, it's actually a weakness. So we are actually giving credence to things that have had to now affect generations overnight. Well, over time. So it's been a handover from one generation to another. And we've created a bunch of humans living in this generation that fear the rejection rather than go through it and become better. Because ideally, if the psychologists in the panel here may want to take sides on maybe both sides of the aisle, but what we've seen over time is the very fact that people who fail to have that self-awareness and to grow in strength and have the confidence to actually face up to these challenges, it's something that's become a reality over time, and it's not something that should be celebrated. It's something that I feel we who are living in this generation should be very fearful of what people become. Perhaps if the exponential graph goes or climbs steeper and steeper, are we going to be seeing people who then are not able to face the very if I may, unchallenging of circumstances. And so life as I know it is not something that's easy. It's never been easy. It's something that throws our way challenges that we should actually be facing in their full presentation and overcome. So, well, the social media side, I know the rejection that you could face out there is something that you can keep to yourself, but ideally, then we've seen us facing up to other new challenges that come with that. And because it's been kept very anonymous and safe, so to speak, it's become very unsafe because the same social media space have been exploited by ill-intentioned individuals who have meted all manner of, criminality, so to speak. And just about today, the other day, we've seen deaths that are very regrettable.
Sadly, as late as today, well, we do not want to assume that that would be attributed to matters, love, but then again, that should be established. But unfortunately, you look at some of these reports and you realize that most of the times they will relate to love affairs and all that. But we come to you, Senior, and we ask, just how important is it for us to have some of these conversations, about sex, and just how flourishing does it get when we can comfortably and openly discuss, when you can comfortably actually approach a woman without having to slide into their DM and, do those evening walks together and, go try and figure out where they stay and all this?
When you started, you did first ask why we can interact with people when we're looking for jobs online, and find that very difficult when it comes to relationships. I think when it comes to the job space, everything is very defined. Expectations on both sides, requirements, and these are verifiable. You can get you'll get somebody's CV, you'll get their referees, you'll get other people. So it's very easy then to verify this person that you're dealing with, get into contracts, get into interviews. When it comes to matters of love, that's not that defined. People begin relationships from a point of how they felt, what they will call chemistry. And they say, we connected, we had chemistry. And sometimes that chemistry then makes them not ask the important questions that they need to ask. Somebody will look at you and feel like they have a crush on you and immediately slide into your DM. And sometimes you also do not want to reject the person. Or you don't know whether they are the ones or not the ones. So you give that space. And by the time people begin to ask the important questions, that thing has progressed. And because people have online personalities as well, sometimes by the time the questions are being asked, conversations have gotten steamy. Because the confidence that they have in the safety that he was talking about and this space where nobody will judge you, so you begin to express yourself a bit more. Generally, if you ask people who have started their dating online, sometimes when they meet the people offline, it's quite different. The body language, the communication, the connection, it's very different because anybody can be what you want them to be behind that. So if we're going to have the thing of breaking the fears, see, I'm old school, so obviously, I'm old school. I still believe in the thing of even if you met online, you need to move it from online to face-to-face.
And Senior, I'm going to come to that and perhaps just, seek to understand what would be the best approach, to use while you're meeting up a person that you met online, so that you can develop a relationship. But before you get to answer that, let's listen to what Ekra has to say. And you interact with youngsters so much so. You speak to them on a daily basis. Just what is happening? And I mean, just how confident are they about this life of wellness and, in the sexual bit of life?
Our generation, this generation that we are dealing with at the tertiary level, they are so exposed. And remember, we are living in the time where everything, you can get it pancake style. What I mean by pancake style is instantly. You can order your food within minutes. You can order your taxi within minutes. You can register for your classes within minutes online. And you can choose not even to go to class and you do them virtually. And you can even choose to do them on the other side of the continent. Right. So now, unfortunately, our young people do not remember that when you're sending these electronic messages, a normal human being is receiving them on the other side. However sensational they may be, it's a real human being that is receiving these virtual, conversational, virtual kind of love, quote unquote. And it is the high time that we keep on mentoring them and telling them that when it comes to matters relationship, it is not a thing to joke around with, because at the end of the day, you will never stay online. There will come a time whereby you need to be one-on-one with this particular person. And this is why it is important. If people meet, my panelist here has reminded us that we are old school. Those days that you'd go for walks at City Park, those days that you'd sit at Uhuru Park. I
kind of wish I had those days. It would have been so cost-effective.
Cost-effective? Yes. It's expensive online when you don't have to meet this person.
No. Like when you go on dates nowadays, it's just pricey.
It's pricey.
It's pricey. Another one. All that.
Right.
And also getting to ask the right question. And also they don't do their list of what they are looking for, because you need to be definite. What am I looking for? What kind of a person do I need to relate myself with? Then you tick the boxes. Unfortunately also, this generation is also with a lot of challenges. Most of them are coming from broken homes. They are no role models of the kind of relationship. So for them, it's leisure, it's pleasure. It's a Friday evening. I need somebody to hang out with on Monday. Once they're done with the hangout, they block each other without taking care of hearts.
Dr. you will agree with me that some of the things that we're going through, or these young turks are going through, and even us actually, even at this level, you know, you perhaps are not in a relationship and you're trying to find someone online. It's happening, and you know, we can't quite say to a certain age bracket. Reality is that all these things are foreign to us, and long gone are the days that, you know, it happened the way it happened back then. How do we make ourselves, you know, align to the fact that, you know, there are foreign things on the table and we just have to adjust somehow without making some of these mistakes that we're talking about?
One of the ways that we need is that everyone needs to have a list of what they are looking for, from this person. What am I looking for when I'm looking for a partner?
Money.
What do I want? Money should not top the list. You can make money.
Okay.
It should not top the list, because you can get someone with money, but this person is narcissistic and it's a borderline disorder. Looks, or of course, no one.
They can deceive.
Exactly.
They can also deceive, but also if that is important to you, then go for it. So that you are able not to lead on someone when you're not interested in them. This is why we are having even these young people committing suicide, because they can't handle the rejection, they can't face the shame. And also we also need to learn to take care of people's hearts. Like what he was talking about, that someone is afraid of getting rejected when somebody slides in their DM. One of the reasons why young people will get that, it's because people do not know how to keep secrets, because relationships is supposed to be you and the person. So the next minute you find the screenshot is online of the conversations, and that leads to really emotionally draining and breaking the other person.
Right.
So it's the relationship coaching and relationship training and mentorship should be something constant from our churches, from our families. The way we grew up, there was a particular auntie you'd walk to and talk to her of whatever you wanted. If it's a male figure, he could have a particular uncle. I remember when we were growing up, our grandfather, when during Christmas, we would sit around in the evening and he would tell us the do's and the don'ts in relationships. I don't know whether that happens.
You see, in a world that is moving very fast, and maybe just to come to you first before I go back to Denver and Byron, can we narrow this down to a conversation of the Kenyan culture? Can we narrow this down to a conversation of the home setup, of the African culture? Because like I said before, you know, this is a whole foreign concept. And therefore, the world is moving pretty fast. Denver, perhaps, like he says, he wishes that sometimes he had an experience, you know, back then. But things are moving very fast. Just how can we Kenyanize and say that, well, online, is there an, you know, an app that speaks to the Kenyan culture, the unique aspects of, you know, different cultures?
It's very difficult because we're all grappling with the mixture of modernity and tradition. Each one of us. We have aspects of modernity. We have aspects of our traditional culture. So you'll find, even when we get into spaces of marriage, even when we talk about what, for example, the women want, they will be looking for both the traditional and the modern man. Traditional in the sense that he pays the bills, he takes care of everything else. Modern in the sense that he will share in the house chores. So we're all looking for this mix. We're looking for a woman who is submissive and cooking and doing that, traditional woman. Then we still want her to go to work and come and do a 50-50. So we want the modern versus traditional. The people who are growing up, the young people who are growing up, they're exposed to these challenges that we have, nearly an identity crisis. And then they're more exposed to the people who are out there, and that's what they believe is the life that they're supposed to have. The portion that we've got to deal with is the grounding at home. What Dr. Ekram was talking about, the grounding, that when people are being exposed to different cultures, different people, different spaces, if they have good grounding, they are able to navigate. The reason we struggle with the navigating is because we're not grounded enough. So if parents had done a bit more of talking, if mentors had done a bit more of talking, but also if the young people had done a bit more of listening, then they would be a bit more grounded.
Denver, you come in at this point and you tell us just how much of good grounding is available for the people out here today.
Well, let me just start by saying I'm glad we're in this part of the world.
Okay.
Because people are still not too far away from being whooped. So at least to a certain degree, there's a level of grounding that can be instilled, and there's a level of rejection that still can be given and the reaction controlled. There's other parts of the world where you see someone being rejected and they cause a tantrum and they make so much noise until they get it, because that's how they've always known how to get things. And it's something that they've learned ever since they were children. And that sort of lack of grounding is what now affects a lot more people today. There's a lot more people that are getting a lot more allowance. They're being given this freedom almost as if they are close to being an adult and they know the difference between right and wrong, or they're an adult so they know the difference between right and wrong, and yet there's still a bit of tweaking that needs to be done. Because, for example, like something as simple as rejection is very, very tricky for some people to take, because if you go, you meet with a girl, you go, you interact, things start to get all hot and steamy. You guys go behind closed doors, and then she gets second thoughts on the entire thing, and she says no. How many people can say that they will be able to hold themselves back and be like, all right, fine, and then they just open the door and they're like, all right, fine, we can just leave and leave it as is. Some people may not be able to accept that because they've gotten so far. Why aren't they getting the cookie? And that's something that I guess some people are unable to deal with, regardless of gender, because there's also women that have issues dealing with that. And that's how now people start crossing into the lack of consent line, which can be very, very tough to now start to pull back from, not just with the other person, but also on a social level the moment now it comes out. Because the moment someone gets a situation like that and they go and they report it to their friends, all of a sudden your face is being plastered all over social media, and you're being looked at as an abuser. You're being looked at as the filth of this planet. And there's no way to get yourself back from that, which is kind of why some people have said that nowadays it's better to be a murderer than to be accused of being a sexual predator or a sexual assault person, if I can call it that. Because at least a murderer can be forgotten. But sexual assault nowadays, it never goes away.
Well, you move around and it's all written on your face. Perhaps this is where we would have begun, by asking just exactly what is sexual wellness in this case. Would actually land us to relationships that are good. And therefore we say that, you know, within our relationship or relationships, there's some element of wellness.
Well, it should not be confused that I'm a sex expert of any nature.
We don't know that for sure.
Absolutely. And so the wellness from the way I look at it, and I'm not in that space quite clearly, I deal in wellness from different perspectives, you know, fitness enthusiast and all these things. And of course it's wellness because I've had to really bury my head into loads and loads of books, especially in this field of psychology, and which I find really interesting because it deals with behavior, and human behavior is what informs all these things. But having said that, I mean, from where I said I feel like the whole idea that sex is from time immemorial has lost its glory to a huge extent, that a lot of things have now been sexualized. When we had the coming in of modernity and civilization with the excesses that it's brought in, and of course with the other add-ons, the cousins, which is a social media space that's opened everybody to everything else, and of course a human race that's not grounded, as we've constantly said here, perhaps the well-worn word in this kind of discussion tonight. Without that grounding, as they say, you know, if you don't stand for anything, you actually fall for everything. So I don't really think we'd apportion that blame purely on the altar of the young generation where Denver sits, and clearly some of us as well. It's something that's been handed over from, you know, generation to generation. We've dropped the ball. Slowly by slowly it slipped through our fingers, and then now everybody is just exposed to just about everything in the world of social media, modernity, civilization, as they call it. To a point where now we've lost that past really great mesh that the moral fabric was, and the norms and the cultures that we were really strong. Because I don't know about history as much, but I know for certain that you didn't have as many statistics of rape, say, let's say, you know, some of those things were very alien when we grew up. We couldn't have heard of anybody talking about, oh, so-and-so was actually forcing their way into this and that. Because the moral fabric was really strong, and so anything that veered off that strong moral road was pretty much recalled and addressed pretty strongly by just the strength of the moral fabric. And we should know today that, as Dave Baptiste did say, is it Jean Baptiste, the more things change, the more they remain the same. I feel, yes, we didn't have phones then, TV sets and all these things, but the society was still very strongly meshed together, that you are not particularly a Temo son, a Temo senior, hopefully. You are son of the society. But today, we walk around and as constantly say this when we're running our boot camps and all these things, that our children are growing up in our homes just like trees do grow up in forests. We are so together alone that every individual is just trying to find their space, and the navigation, love it, Army, a language there, that we're navigating the business of this life with broken compasses. And one of those would be the value systems that we don't actually have. We don't know where we're actually coming from, so we wouldn't know where we're going. And that's the challenge that we have today. That all these things that now come as pancakes, microwave generation that now is here with us and facing this reality, faces some really strong challenges because they are having a life that's not been cultured and socialized through those strong value systems. And there's no one in terms of just mentors to look up to. If you're looking at the older generation, they're the people that you'll find tucked away in the street corner somewhere with the people who are half or, you know, literally a third their age. So, and he said our children don't learn from the things we tell them, and we can be speaking here until cows come back home, but they learn from the things that they see us do. So we can be drumming all these stuff, but unless the society really finds its way, and some other people have called it moral rearmament, that we look at ourselves as a society as a whole, from the top person within the borders of this country, how morally upright are they? Right. What examples are they setting? Because these people are going to be looking at that space saying, oh, they're driving a big car and they're constantly changing, women. That's the life that I'm going to live. And so someone is going through this business of life being this one person, that other politician, this influencer, and you find one person living so many split lives that is not sustainable at all. Okay. And so once we cheapen matters of now just say sex, then it means that it falls for anybody and for anything. This checklist that Madam is talking about here, Dr. Ekre is talking about here, doesn't exist at all. Okay. As long as you're in that social space and you've inboxed someone and you've floated some little money, you are getting an Airbnb that ideally, because of the unregulated approach to that kind of business, you know, they become the new brothels in town. Yeah. And then you have people who fall in that space because there's no strong connection. You didn't have a checklist in the first place. And so you are falling in the hands of just about anybody. They could as well be a gorilla, but as long as they floated something in social media, and you are able to take a bait, then the next you could be facing your death. So I ideally feel the whole ideas around moral rearmament could be a rich topic to actually tap into. Our expectations as a society has got to be readjusted and renegotiated with the realities of modernity and civilization as they are, and of course in the backdrop of it all being the traditions that set us up for life. Okay, and Dr. before we take a quick short break in about 2 minutes, listening to what it is that, you know, Byron speaks of, and, you know, just going back again to our checklist and, you know, ticking the boxes and all that. First of all, there has to be some element of sobriety that you're coming with as an individual. And even as you get into that space with your checklist and all that, you also need to find a person who's equally as sober so that you're going to guarantee yourself, you know, sexual wellness and as well as, you know, a relationship that is firm and good enough. So how do you get to understand the good and bad intentions even as you work with your checklists? First, as we have this conversation, I don't know whether we are saying it is okay for our youth to practice sex before marriage. Okay. Because that is where we should start. Because I think it's supposed to be a reserve of the married. If you are a Christian and a true Christian, that is basically where the value system, and this is where now we go wrong, because when it is allowable, then sex has become transactional. Sex has become a tool, which is not supposed to be. It is supposed to be a reserve of two people who love each other as a way of expressing their love or even procreation and all that. So it is important that we tell our young people the truth and how things are supposed to be done. Because when we allow them and tell them that sexual wellness, this is what you need to do, this is how you can do, then by the end of the day, by the time they are 30, they are trying to settle, they have got so much emotional baggage because they have a part of someone they were with in college, another one they were with in campus, another one they went out for a road trip. So there is so much emotional baggage, and this is why we have emotionally broken adults because of the things they have gone through over there. And I'm talking about this as a mental and a coach, and where people confine of their issues and how they feel and how they regret about the kind of life they have lived. So for me, wellness and sexual wellness would be, if you practiced it the right way, then you have absolute no regrets. All be the right way and the right time. Allow us to take a quick short break, and then we come back on that very note. After this short break, we are back.
Wanasema wasemao kuwa elimu ni bahari haishi kwa kuchotwa. Wakati mwingi natangamana na wanafunzi madarasani, sio kama mwalimu bali kama nahodha kwenye kipindi cha tasnia ya elimu. Na iwapo utanikosa madarasani, basi utanipata nyanjani nikisaka habari zenye usawa, ufasaha na ukweli. Na iwapo utanikosa nyanjani, bila shaka utanipata studioni, hapa nikisoma habari na kuendesha mijadala mikomavu. Mimi ni Andrin Kilemi, mpenzi wa lugha ya Kiswahili na elimu kwa jumla.
Pesa They say money makes the world go round. So let's slow things down a bit. Put things in perspective. From the markets to the streets to the stocks, we make the complex comprehensible. Join me, Hibak Said, on TV47 Business News for market insights like never before.
What's making the headlines? What does it mean to you? How does it affect you? We answer all these questions every Sunday for half an hour on To The Point show. Hey, I'm Grace Kuriakanja, and a lot has happened this week. Let's dive into it.
The news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victories,
Welcome back to The Point. This evening, the conversation is about sexual wellness, or, just how well can you ensure that your relationship is. And in this case, then we're talking about love and some of these, marriages that we have today. Just the biggest question would be, have we lost it? Have we collapsed as a people, especially when it comes to the talk of love? And is it about, this talk where you say there's love anymore? I mean, we do not even know whether there's the existence of love as we speak today. Is it money? Is it just companionship? And is it a contract where you say after 5 years it's just not making me happy anymore, let me move to the next person? And in studio with me is CJ Atemo, who's seated right next, and of course we also have Denver.
Yes.
Magaka.
Yes.
I just said Denver when I introduced you. I didn't get to the other name. I just noticed that.
Yeah.
Because Denver is my boy. Like I said, it's a household name. And we also have Dr. Ekran Dungu. And lastly, we have Byron Adera. Let's come to you, CJ, and ask this crucial question as to what Daktari speaks of. The blueprints, just looking at how it should be, the defining factors and the reality on ground. That today you can get some young turks and talk to them about how it's important for them to engage when they are married and not at a stage where they're in campus and, they are living their life to the fullest.
You see, Byron talked about the images that people see.
Yeah.
And we generally conform to what we see. Social media is a very powerful tool. Social media is a very powerful tool. When people are exposed to things that they keep on seeing, those things become permissible. That's why whenever any agenda needs to be pushed, it will be made visible for a while. Then it becomes acceptable. Even if it was something that the society would not agree to, the more you look at it, the more you accept it and say, well, that is how things go. The people we are asking to behave in a certain manner are seeing a lot of very different things. When we were growing up, TV, the station would open at about 4 or 5, and by midnight it's gone. So now we've got 24/7. You've got Netflix, you've got YouTube, you've got all kinds of sites that are available to these people. You've got parents who are too busy to monitor what people are watching. TVs in every room. Everybody's sitting in the house on phone, and nobody knows what the other person is watching. You feel like your kid is always home, but you're not even sure of what that kid is doing, whom they're chatting, what they're watching, what they're talking about, because everybody is in their own space. It takes a lot of strength in government then to bring these people into the place of building those values. And you see what social media offers people is access. It doesn't just give us the images, but also access. Like through access, I can reach you. It's not like before where if I wanted to reach you, I've got to come to your home, knock your door, meet your parents. If your father is a very harsh man, I'll think twice before I even come to your gate. Now I'll slide into the DM, I'll get your number, I'll find this access. If you are in the same space, it becomes very easy for us then to experiment with this. These things are not even new. Linda, it's not that our generation did not have these temptations, but there was no access. Now there is access. You can get everything Dr. Ekra talked about. You get everything on phone. So if I have these desires and these passions that have not been built, and some of them are hinged on the fact that we came from families that did not have farmers, we did not feel acceptance, we did not feel appreciation, and we're looking for this validation, then you have this space and you can connect to somebody out there. It becomes difficult for this person then to understand why they should wait, because then they think this represents affirmation. So when somebody says your body is hot, they've never had any affirmation. When they hear you're so sexy, they've never had any affirmation. So they respond to that because it is a deficiency that they have. Every human being has a need for acceptance, a need for acknowledgement, and a need for accolades. If they find themselves feeling accepted, and that could mean anything, they will gravitate towards it. It's like the plant that grows towards the light. And so everything comes back again to the family. Like, how are we raising our children? How much of affirmation do they hear? How much validation do they get? How much of their identity are they told? How much of their purpose do they get to hear about? How many men ever sit down with boys, and I've got 3 boys and something to raise, and how many men ever sit down with boys and talk to them about their bodies? We talk to the girls. We say, when you sit down, you sit like this. A woman should dress like this and sit like this and do that. We're not doing that with the boys. So you're training a woman to remain chaste, but you've not trained the boy, who then thinks that sex is a casual thing. So when you talk about the brokenness, for example, the girl will be broken. Rarely will it be the boy. Because for him, it's not so much of anything. And generally, you find men treat their money the way women would treat their body. So for the man, if you get his money, then he wants your body. Because that's the thing he's been trained to take care of. For him, the money, his wallet, it's 10 o'clock? Okay. His wallet is his underwear. When he opens that, he has opened himself to you. So you'll keep on having these things of, I spent money on her and she said no to me. And the woman will think, but that's just money. She doesn't understand that to this boy, this money is just as sacred as her body is.
Wow.
It becomes very transactional then.
Okay, very transactional. I'm going to talk about the ladies and just how it appears that every other time anything sexual or relationship, you know, is broken down, that it is the lady who's perhaps blamed so much more. And I don't know whether we're moving out of this phase. But before then,
Really?
I'm glad that you are responding that way. I would have loved for you to answer that question. Is it not the case, really? You know why I'm saying this?
Okay.
So this evening, as I march into the office trying to prepare for the show, my colleague, Onsari, I'm going to say it blatantly, Onsari is like, Linda, and I'm like, tafadhali, because he anchors, you know, he's a Swahili anchor, so he's like, tafadhali jaribu kuongea na mabinti wenzako. What is not happening? Where is this coming from? Oh, angalia Scarlett. Oh, okay, angalia what is happening today. We do not know whether it's anything to do with love and all that. But it is the bintis that are supposed to be spoken to, and not John, Matara, and not anybody else, and not the man. That's basically why I'm asking that. Yesterday, again, I'll say I had Dr. Wala, and she was talking about divorce and just how much it is her, you know, as a woman who's being bashed some more as compared to the man. I mean, does it not involve 2 people?
Yes, it does involve 2 people.
Yeah.
But, okay, I guess you have a point. There's a lot to relationships that is usually blamed on women. Actually, people say that women hold the keys to the bedroom matter and men hold the keys to the relationship. But whenever things break down, usually it's the other side that will sort of look bad. So in the bedroom, if things aren't so good, it's the guy that can't perform. If in the relationship things aren't looking so good, oh, she can't keep a man. So yes, to a certain degree, there are women are blamed for things that happen in a relationship, but it's because a lot of times men won't get out of a relationship by, well, I'd probably say they're more prone to staying in a relationship even though they're not happy. Mostly because...
And that should not be wellness as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. It's not wellness, but for us, we treat relationships like we treat responsibility, like most things. So if we have a certain sense of responsibility, even though it hurts us, we'll still do it. The whole phrase of if you give a man purpose, he can crawl over broken glass and he'll do it comfortably. That's sort of the same mindset that we'll have towards relationships. As long as we can make sure that she's happy, we're good. Sometimes it'll come to our detriment, but we'll still be okay with it. But should it really be blamed on the women? I think in today's day and age, it should be shared a little bit, because as men, as Kenyan men, we have a lot to answer for. There's a lot that we have and haven't done that definitely needs to be studied. Let's be quite honest, because there's some problems that we have as men that need to be addressed. There's some problems that we have as men that we need someone to at least address on our behalf.
Are we not speaking as much as we should? And again, it gets me a bit confused, especially when you look at the space that we have online, and therefore it allows us the latitude to speak and speak and speak our minds. Are we really not talking about some of these problems that men are facing?
I think people nowadays stick to fairly trivial topics. The deeper conversation isn't had as much. Nowadays, people, well, if you try and listen to a lot of the typical relationship stories, they all tend to involve some level of sex. You expect some level of infidelity, and at some point it's going to be some person that's angry, and usually there's the one friend that's usually single that's like, you know what, leave him. And as a result, like that's like 60% of what we're hearing. But having a balanced view, having an open set of issues that we need to learn how to tackle is something that we don't have that much experience in, because we don't have that many discussions. So as a result, most people will expect that if things weren't working out between the both of you, then there's most likely an issue with infidelity, or someone isn't performing properly somewhere, or someone is just mistreating the other person. So there's some level of toxicity or emotional abuse or domestic abuse. And it goes beyond that. Relationship issues are more than that. And I'm sure everyone here is older than me. You can definitely say that there's way more issues in relationships than just the 3 or 4 that I've just mentioned.
All right. So before we allow the men to respond to that and perhaps tell us why is it that they're not addressing the concerns of the men, the ladies, let's answer Onsari this evening.
Just to pick up from where he has stopped.
Yeah.
Sometimes the relationship is not the problem. Sometimes there is someone who might be in a relationship with herself.
Okay.
It's true.
Most of the time.
True.
Most of the time.
That's very true.
So it's also something else that we also need to train our ladies to know whether you are in a relationship or you are in a relationship with yourself.
Okay.
So now, the African setup has been, the training has been for the girl child. Even when you attend a wedding, everybody who stands to speak, they talk about how you will take care of your home, how you'll take care of your man, how you will cook for your man, the whole day. And no one is telling the man how you will take care of your wife. Or nobody is telling the boy child the same. Even mentorship programs that we have, it is how to be a lady, how to act like a lady, how to behave, how to do what. That has been our African training, which has ended up to become very toxic to our women, because you grow up with this kind of expectation. This is what I am supposed to do. So you start ticking the boxes. I cooked for him. I did it. I broke my back. I was... But why is it not working? And then at the end of it all, you're still the person who is blamed by the society. Perhaps you're vocal, so the society will say you are disrespectful. No one even wants to know where did they start or how did we get here. So moving forward with this conversation, I keep on telling the people that we have this conversation with, especially the mentors, that this requires perhaps a national dialogue on the moral fabric of the family and the society, because the family is the smallest unit of any society. Once it's broken, the entire society is broken, and to mend it it's very, very difficult. So our training should stop being it is the woman. It is also, we also need to see a lot of mentorship on how to be a great husband, how to be a good boyfriend to somebody. I think we need to hear more of that so that we can, this empowered girl that has gotten so empowered since the 80s, since the Beijing, who is this man that will be able to handle her?
I believe that we're coming up so well, Byron, in relation to just empowering the boy child today.
Well, Denver's
talk to the boys and all that.
Absolutely, Denver's found a space in my safe space. And I feel she's absolutely spot on in the fact that we've raised a very strong girl child over time because of that pretty much good focus on let's raise, they've been forgotten for quite some time, so let's raise stronger women. Yeah. That will march on and carry the baton of, good women into the future. Again, it's the reality of now the excesses of modernity and civilization is here, and we need to leave some of those old practices or traditional practices. So there was that clamor, yes. And for a moment there, I think the boy child was broken. And I think fairly much because tradition, there was an affront to fight some of our traditional values. Some of those that were marked as backward practices or cultural practices for that matter that were found to be in contravention to matters, legal matters, or pretty much as human rights as they were, as they still are. So to a big extent then, people became more and more aloof in terms of looking at the whole bolts and nuts of raising our boys. And it's a big letdown for the society because unless we raise, it's a parallel. I keep telling people that there's literally nothing like toxic masculinity, same as there's absolutely nothing like toxic feminism as well. You can raise as strong a woman as possible in this society without interfering with what men are doing on the other side of the aisle. Similarly, you can raise great, strong, macho men who can be as ourselves, warriors as ourselves, but who are not going to be fearful of women or who are not going to be, violent or do all those things that are seen to be narcissistic tendencies as they are today. So I'm okay with, of course, having a national dialogue on this topic because, yes, as she said, the family remains that basic smallest unit of the society, but the reality here today is that you could have a parent, it could be a functional family with a husband and a wife, but of course you're a teacher and you posted in an outpost in wherever, and so literally the family is going to be relying on other people other than that basic unit of a husband and a wife to raise the family. And so it takes us back to what the society was doing in the past. And what I say, with the advantages even of social media, a lot of these things can be pegged on, we can shake sticks at the advantages that have come with social media. And of course other disadvantages. So why don't we look at the positives? Like where I grew up, we had those dual sessions. Dual is fireplace for Luo, for fireplace. And I try now to have the same example, and even with the social media, we can have those virtual duels, so to speak, where we have those social media spaces. And I now have a group of men, we call ourselves the Pentagon, it's growing. And we just have our normal, literally very level-headed talks in that space. So that's our virtual duel where we're having, it's a fireplace, and we bring in our boys. When we meet once in a while and we have our boys and say it's Father's Son's Day. And they have a hybrid of ideas across the board. You're an engineer, you're something else. And they have quite a bit of fun just trying to know everything that is not primarily on me, but is with Brother Temo here and Denver. That's how we go trace. So you can take advantage of even the excess of the social media, let's say, or the virtual space with the, what modernity is given us, to still peg them back to the traditional, practices that really brought us up to where we are today, because that's where we've dropped the ball. So yes, with the mix of modernity and tradition, as Mr. Temo said, we now have men having different expectations. And I mean, in the Greek mythology, the Pygmalion effect, which is pretty much expectation and performance. The way the society would be looking at our generation, let's say the generation Z today, ideally is a self-fulfilling prophecy, as that psychological principle speaks to it. That, Linda, if we came here and you were told backstage that one of us here, one of your panelists, Byron Adera, is a quackish, you know, it's just not. Trust me, the questions that you'd ask with that expectation, you'd ask me, would be a self-fulfilling prophecy, which would turn me into something else. And when I answer, trust me, even if it's a gold, award-winning answer, it will still be viewed differently. And that's what the society has become today, that we have several self-fulfilling prophecies, and then we walk out there, we branded our generation that we've had to load on their shoulders loads and loads of mediocrities, let's say. Yeah. And we're expecting too much out of that mediocrity. We've had to see us have them learn how we can hide from the police and in ceilings and stuff like that during Corona. Yeah. And then we get to sit back and watch news as to how much they're banning schools. We shouldn't be shocked. So when we feel that then the ball has been dropped somewhere, then we have to renegotiate our expectations and tailor-make our belief systems in a way that can lockstep with the realities on the ground, and then set our compasses right, have our mapping systems aligned, and then we can get to a destination that's so desired. If we don't do that, then it's a sorry state, and we're in some big problem that's got to be
somehow a good way to wind it up. But before we do that, we have about 7 minutes or so to step out. It's also good that we interact with the people who are watching, and Moses here is asking, just how do you say no and disconnect from people you have met online after you find out that they are not who they claim to be, yet you have outpoured yourself to them? Also, can you tell the intentions of a potential date online? Denver, this ones go to you because you are always online. I know. With this podcast affair and all that, you can almost be tempted to just, get into that space without knowing.
Yeah. I probably even started out not knowing. How do you how do you say no?
After you realize that maybe they're not as legit and you've already outpoured yourself to them. And also, how do you just get to tell that, this one has good intentions, like this would be a potential date, quickly?
Okay, so how do you reject someone? I think that one is probably what was being asked, and I'd say politely. I wouldn't vouch for the whole ghosting, which is becoming a lot more common nowadays. You can just flat out say, hey, look, I know that, we've been talking for a while, but I don't see this going anywhere. You can add the other bits of, it's not you, it's me. But yeah, all you have to say is, I don't think me and you are really going anywhere, and I'd just like to end this now. At the end of the day, there's some people that will try to push on and try to persist, but you need to stick to your guns and say, I'm sorry, this isn't working out. That's it. Which one was the other?
The other one was like, can you tell the intentions of a potential date online? Pretty much easy?
Well, not always, but you can never be 100% sure. Plus, I think some things just take practice, to be very honest. Some things definitely take practice. But the general rule of thumb is, if it feels too good to be true, it probably is. Okay. But being a little bit curious can help, but in all things, try to be as safe as possible.
Another question here, Senior, goes to you. Is there a fundamental difference between a relationship where a couple met in the normal traditional way, say at the bus stop, the village, the workplace, an event, and a relationship where people have met in the modern ways like dating applications? And of course, is dating just dating? Are there parameters the same, rules of the game and all that? Or the parameters the same?
I think what defines a relationship is the quality of the people involved. So whether they met online or they met in person, they met at the bus stop, they met in the village, whatever it is, eventually the quality of the relationship will be hinged on the quality of the people. The people who have met online, but their character was solid and they've been able to work it out. There are people who met in person and it didn't work. So the platform is just a platform. It's just exposing whatever people have. The only thing that I would say is that when it comes to online, people have a lot of access to a lot of options. So sometimes then that gets a bit messed up. So the advantage then of the person to person is that you lower the risk, but it doesn't mean that you eliminate it. The risk is a bit lowered. You can trace where this person is from, either where they work, where they live, who is in their lives or stuff. When it comes to online, you may not know anything else about this person. You may not know anybody else. So you won't have referees. You won't say, who are your referees? I want to call them. Where's your ex to tell me about yourself? But with the person-to-person, you can trace. You'll get to know their family, their friends, and other people. So you get to have a certain semblance of safety. It's not always so, but you get a certain semblance of safety, lower the risk, and you can easily then make your decisions faster. Because if I meet you and talk with you for 30 minutes, I can pick up your mind, your mindset, your view of life, and I can quickly say, I don't think I want to go on with this. Whereas when it is just some charts, I'll present to you what I think that you want, and you may not have very good judgment of me. Dating, is dating just dating? It's the place of knowing each other. It's a place of knowing whether your values match, whether you share same aspirations and vision, whether you want to go the same direction. We don't ask a lot of questions there, and the questions are not even supposed to be structured as questions. You observe, you listen, you're checking out whether this person has the same value system, they want to go the same direction, they think the way I think, their viewpoint of life aligns with mine. Sometimes we don't realize that dating is an interview where you need to find out whether this person is best suited for the job that you're offering.
Well, interesting. Dr. Before we close it, before we even get to that point of a national dialogue, how do we bring our girls back to order? I don't know whether you check on Twitter so much so, or X, and recently there was this tweet that was, or there was this hashtag about Twitter Koinange, and it breaks my heart to see that beyond the streets, we have brought it online, and it is big and is as massive as you'd never imagine, and it's actually happening, that our girls are selling themselves, out there online in the cheapest way possible.
It is sad. It's a sad situation, but that is the oldest profession.
Okay.
It's nothing
Also,
new.
we've had.
Right.
Yes. Even when you read the good book, we still had them in our life manual, the Rahab and the others. But why, the question should be, the 5 whys of Sigmund Freud. Why are our girls doing this and so confident to do it on TikTok, to do it on social media? What is this that is driving them to that? Because this is a generation that is lacking what we call spirit of contentment. They are not contented with what their parents can offer.
Okay.
The spirit of competition. I saw Linda with the iPhone 15. I want the same. My parents cannot provide that. My new job that I am earning 50K, 30K, 20K cannot give me that, or I am jobless. So I can't wait for the process. So what is the easiest way? The moral fabric that we were talking about.
And the
so there is somebody in his 50s is willing to give me that as a transaction. So some of them may look even very professional, but they are professional. Practice of that profession.
Sweet.
And we're running out of time, we have to close there.
So we really need an overhaul of our society, because it is unfortunate, because sometimes you look at it and you ask yourself, if God had a balcony in heaven, when he looks down, what does he think of us?
Wow. Probably a good way to close it, and the biggest question that we'd carry home, and we just say, well, the conversation continues. Lady and gentlemen, we really have to close it at this very point. It's exactly 10:30, the only time that we were accorded. And so the last speaker, Dr. Ekra Ndungu, who is the chairperson of National Association of Private Colleges, thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Byron Adera right next to her, that is on her left, who was a pioneer ex-Kenya Special Forces officer and equally a wellness enthusiast. And there's Denver. Denver, thank you so much as well. Denver Bagaka, At least this time round, I say it. Relationship podcaster, and finally CJ Atemo, who is a growth coach. If only we had more time, we could have spoken to this more and more, but we do not relent. We continue, even on our socials. I'll be listening to the latest podcast that you have, and let's see whether we extend this conversation further. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as well for keeping us company right from the beginning up to this point. TV47 Weekend Edition closes at this very point. Asante as well for the immense feedback, and in particular to the point. I look forward to see you again next Sunday. My name is Linda Lela. Do have yourself a lovely, lovely evening ahead, and not forgetting to appreciate as well Roda Nyamai, who was our sign language interpreter. Bye-bye.